particularly nasty kind.
Would you say there is any kind of cannibalism that is not nasty, General?
No, sir, I did not mean to imply that.
Well, then what did you mean?
We use the term can over there to mean one or a group of hungries who slaughters and consumes one of his own family or a neighbor instead of someone from outside his own village or region.
What do you call a man who was out for dinner?
Well, it's not so much a matter of the individual anymore, sir. Whole regional groups of hungries raid into the nearby areas and carry off thousands of people who are then slaughtered and eaten.
I see, General. What are they called?
Well, the raiders, we call them trav camps. Trav or travel.
Thank you. Now, can you tell us what the International Containment Expedition does to halt to this human state of affairs?
You know the answer to that, sir. The ICE was created by the Senate, along with the counterparts in the other nations comprising the Great Western Barrier.
Now, that is right, but you were instructed to isolate and contain the desperate population.
Senator, you would have to see for yourself what we're up against.
Now, General, all of us behind the Great Western Barrier have an idea of what you contend with. Before we had the banned television, the other mass media, the isolation areas, we all had a pretty good. But the ICE in Africa or in the northeast corner of Latin America seem to be doing a pretty good job.
But we have the most critical and desperate area of the globe to handle, Senator. They've had an HH factor far longer than
H factor?
Yes, sir. Another bit of field shorthand. It means hunger head start. We figure strength on the HH factor. Some nations began an endemic famine condition as far back as the 1950s. Others didn't achieve that plateau. And
some of the language you just heard, what General White calls field shorthand, is pretty hard to take. Can, although did you know the traffic in human flesh for human consumption was practiced among the French peasantry back in the so-called Dark Ages? It was. And we do have right now the equivalent of a Great Western Barrier. We call it the affluent society. The way things are going now, there'll be no alternative a few decades hence except to barricade ourselves from several billion desperately hungry Asians, Africans, and South Americans. It's our old friend Joe Everett. Nice guy, Joe. Sincere, but no matter how bad things are, you'll find that somebody else is a magical solution. Heart's in the right place for their cutting. No question about that, is it, Joe?
Okay, be it, Sour. I guess all that benefits, the hungries and all that. Trouble with you guys is you don't keep up with things. I just finished reading an article about the great new scientific gimmick, double or triple the world food production. Something they spell ALGAE.
I think I know. It's algae, I think, Joe. And there have been countless news stories, television documentaries, magazine articles on algae and other single-cell proteins, proteins from green, massive fish production, all half of the old tricks that never yet have produced a nibble for a hungry child.
Okay, how do you know they won't do these things?
Well, to begin with, we've been talking about finding new ways to hocus-pocus hunger out of existence for years. But Joe, it just won't go away.
Where do you come up with this? You an authority?
No, I'm not. But these fellows are. The President's Science Advisory Committee.
Fine, another committee.
100 of the best scientific minds our society has been able to get together for this task. They finally dispelled a very dangerous illusion regarding the world food situation for the next 20 years.
Such as?
Well, for one thing, they have finally put an end to the old non-conventional food production theory. Now remember, these are scientists, nutritionists, chemists, agronomists, economists, demographers, tops in their field in every case. As far as filling those empty bellies with so-called a miracle mush or whatever you're going to call it, they say, forget it. It's not in the office. Here, let me quote exactly from the President's Science Advisory Committee report of May 1967. In summary, some non-conventional sources of food appear to offer great potential for the long term. But in the judgment of the panel, none of these can be expected to lessen the problem of increasing food production from conventional sources during the next 2 decades. In fact, furthermore, the magnitude of the world's food problem is so great that non-conventional sources, when and if they become available, can be needed to supplement rather than to supplant modernized agriculture.
You mean there's no miracle mush?
They mean that, not me. As you say, I have no authority.
They could be wrong, too.
Well, if 100 highly trained minds working seriously for several years with no political axis to grind cannot come up with a reliable answer, then we might as well go home and forget about it again.
Might be a good idea, Sam.
But the problem will follow us right into our homes, in our consciousness, such as they are.
You mean like there's nowhere to hide, that's it.
Yes, that's it. There's nowhere to hide. You can't hide from millions of hungry people today, nor can we run away from several billion hungries in the years just ahead. And incidentally, this same report has a great deal to say about that, too.
Like what?
Like our growing weariness over the sufferings of others. Hold on just a minute while I read this to you. The subject has been treated so thoroughly in orations and editorials during the past 2 decades that both its size and its significance tend to be obscured by rhetorical overkill. All this has been said before, and said extremely well. All has been repeated, reiterated, and rephrased. The stark misery of hunger, as they say. The ravages of malnutrition. The threats of civil strife. Social unrest. The political upheaval posed by food shortages. And the shadow cast by impending famine have all been portrayed in urgent and compelling terms. The need for the United States and other developed nations and international agencies and voluntary institutions to help the hungry nations has been pointed out time after time. Insofar as the citizens of the developed countries of the West are concerned, this obligation to aid the less fortunate of the earth has been accepted without argument. They seem to assume that they're already supporting effective programs which will finally alleviate the problem. In fact, so repetitively has this problem been brought to the attention of the American public during the past several years, they seem almost to have lost the ability to respond to the stimulus. They're aware of the existence of the problem. They converse about it from time to time, but there is no longer any depth of understanding or of concern about it. It's put this way, actually. A nation conditioned by affluence might possibly be suffering from compassion fatigue or conscience sickness. The peril of narrowing our field of vision, leave out the unpleasant view of life disfigured by hunger.
What's this business about compassion fatigue?
Well, here, we'll let our audience have a look at what we're talking about. The baby in the arms of the relief worker is dying from starvation. I don't like it, you don't, nobody does. We get a feeling of helplessness here, of impotence. We'd rather not see things as shocking as the death of that helpless child. Here are a few more shots of people in the midst of starvation.
Compassion.
So the average Joe, like you or me, eventually we say to ourselves, well, some way we'll be bound to get around this monster. Somebody will come up with something. Or you say, I'm sick of hearing about it, that's all. I can't do anything about it. I just don't want to hear about it anymore. Don't bug me.
Okay, I get the point. But what does this Science Advisory Committee propose?
Well, the Science Advisory Committee of the President proposes that the United States and the affluent Western nations increase their financial and technical contributions to needy Asian, African, and South American countries to the very limit of our resources. Some experts have placed the annual money figure required at $12 billion as the U.S. end alone. The committee warns that we have evaded this problem by makeshift and ineffective programs, by failing to speak frankly and insistently about the terrible threat facing the world during the period between now and the year 2000, and by permitting illusions to spread that scientific miracles will eventually solve this problem. The committee urges an unprecedented investment of money, as well as the teaching of new techniques, but it warns that the world food problem must depend on traditional farming methods, both here and abroad. It says in effect, get busy now and stop fooling ourselves. Joe, excuse me, I'm getting a signal on the other phone from the Senate hearing. Nice talking to you. We'll go back there. Now, we'll go back to the Senate hearing. Our man there says that, well, we quote him now. I heard the word important, so let's go back to Washington right now, and that Senate hearing now in progress.
Yeah, I think you're going a little too far. In all due respect, Senator, I think you're trying to put me on the spot here.
Not being put on the spot, General. We just want an answer to a simple question.
And you know the answer, sir.
But we want your answer, General, for the record. Now, who gave the order?
Just as you say, Senator, for the record. As field commander, I gave the order. Now, here's how it was. As of March 12, 1980, and that was only 3 weeks ago, we had to make a quick decision on the spot. The situation threatened to get completely out of control. 2 whole divisions of our men were literally overrun, and about 1 million Hungries broke out with arms and trucks in hand.
And it was your decision.
We had no alternative, Senator. We had to drop the bomb.
I am James McCracken, Executive Director of Church World Service. Right at this moment, we have scores of field workers in those areas of the world fast approaching catastrophe. The phrases you just heard may be the language of our future. The term Hungries was contained in a manifesto written by Calcutta College students only this past summer. They called it, prophetically, a manifesto of the hungry. We must ask ourselves as a compassionate people whether there will be a future military counterpart for a General White. The HH factor is not prophecy. It exists now. Huge areas of the world have already entered the stage of permanent hunger in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. While the dramatized fictional Senate committee hearing you have just seen was fantasy, but potential prophecy, all the socio-economic elements are with us now. Unless governments, churches of all religions and faiths, organizations and institutions, increase their efforts by at least 6 times, we may yet live to witness an international containment expedition and atomic weaponry to be used savagely to solve a problem that we failed to take steps to grapple with during the next 12 years. We have been warned repeatedly by social and physical scientists that global hunger catastrophe will be upon us by 1980 if we fail to act now. Based upon the practical evidence at hand today, there will be no miracle. Competent scientists are insistent that there will be no miracle mush to feed the several billion starving children and adults of our near future. The General Board of the National Council of Churches has called for extraordinary response from us all. Church World Service, the relief and rehabilitation arm of 32 U.S. Protestant denominations, is where the action counts in 40 countries around the world. We need you and your concern to fight world hunger. Thank you.